For this category, we honor the characters who bring depth and intensity to the screen, the nominees for Best Main Dramatic Character. These characters navigate life's challenges with resilience and determination, captivating us with their compelling stories. As we explore these nominees, let's celebrate their journeys of growth and triumph. Join us in honoring these unforgettable characters who have left a lasting impact on the anime world. Here are your nominees for Best Main Dramatic Character in 2023.
的ってのは人間の腹の大きさなんだ。人の腹狙って弓引いてんだ。腹に当てるかどうかなんだよ。お前らの肩。う
まく泣いてくれれば。
それでも光はあるから。妊娠だってだいぶバッシングを受けちゃってね。
相変わらず肩こりに効くなこの船は。ん？ああ。
こんな大げさな仲直りって小学生ぶりで。
そうか。死ね。
And the jury winner for Best Dramatic Character is Sosuke Shima from Skip and Loafer. And the public winner for Best Dramatic Character is Thorfinn Karlsefni from Vinland Saga Season 2.
Fun fact, we recently held a trivia contest on the subreddit, of which Aki here is actually the winner, so congratulations to Aki.
Thanks.
And one of the questions was, what animal is Sosuke Shima most compared to? And it was A, a fox, B, a cat, C, an alpaca, and D, a dog. So Ember, a little impromptu trivia game. What is your answer?
Having actually watched the show about a week ago, I'm fairly certain it is a dog.
Ping pong.
Ding 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 ding.
Why do you think they're compared to a dog, and is that a good thing? Because we love dogs.
If I recall from the show, it's basically he's just got this kind of like almost like lighthearted, goofy kind of energy that reminds meets me of her dog back home, and I think it's a very endearing comparison in the show that I think is very fitting.
Well, it's funny because
blonde.
He also is
also that.
Blonde. I think it's very interesting to me just because he does have that kind of nature in it, and I think it's interesting that Mitsumi is the one that makes this observation, because he also has this other side of him that's sort of kind of enigmatic and secretive and kind of there's a bit of history there. What do you think of him kind of battling with these two sides, and how does that resolve in the show?
I think it's very interesting, especially like in comparison to a lot of the other characters on this list where their problems are much more like grandiose and explosive, whereas Skip and Loafer is has much more subdued drama that's still just as like poignant in terms of like I believe Shima just trying to like keep the drama within himself and not really allowing other people to see that part of him, but gradually over the course of the series getting closer to these people, the people around him, and sort of allowing them to help him through this stuff that he's going through.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of I have this old video, and the original name used to be much maligned because it's a funny name, but it's Koi no Katachi pretends to be bad. And the point in that video was that Koi no Katachi set up these kind of big melodramatic incidents where normally you would kind of like revel in it and do all that kind of stuff, but then they get resolved really simply and easily with some conversation and just like real life, right? But I think Skip and Loafer, it doesn't pretend to be good, it just is good, and it is good because you also have these kind of moments where drama could build up, where Mitsumi is like, there's even a classic love triangle, right? And instead of there being a confrontation, Mitsumi's nature and Shima's nature just kind of naturally disarms the whole thing, which I found really endearing.
Yeah, I just loved the vibes of this series complemented the drama really well. They just kind of flowed nicely into each other.
Were some of what we were discussing considerations for the jury, Aki Pender?
For Shima specifically, the things that kind of stood out the most were kind of his character journey as he begins to confront his, shall we say, checkered past, particularly vis-a-vis his relationship with his mother and to a lesser degree his brother in Ririka, and also how that contrasts with the series themes as it's explored through other characters such as Mitsumi. So basically, his own journey and how he's used as a foil for other characters, with two other characters rather.
And you know who also is used as a foil for other characters and is blonde?
Who? Tell me, Milton.
I wonder.
Tell me.
Ember, what do you think of Thorfinn's much more different than I imagined journey through Vinland Saga Season 2?
I am not at all surprised that he took the public win for this one. I think he might personally be my favorite from this list as well. I'm a big fan of the manga, so I was very excited to see Farmland Saga finally get adapted just to see. This is basically like the other side of the coin of season 1, whereas season 1 is like just violence and revenge and hate. This is Thorfinn attempting to move past that and internally atoning for everything that he did in the first season, and it was incredibly powerful. Like episode 9 I think is like one of my favorite episodes of anime of the year, so just really good stuff.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was a little confused at the beginning of hey, when are they gonna get off the farm? That was like a legit like, thought I had. But as it went on, I found myself getting really, really engrossed in his journey, his kind of growth and acceptance of everything that he's gone through. I almost kind of likened it to the Buddha's journey in a way. So the Buddha, he starts off in this kind of like land of wealth, and then sees kind of suffering out in the wild, decides to abandon his wealth, and then kind of takes the other extreme of becoming this extreme ascetic. So barely eating any food, fasting a lot, and then eventually realizes that the right way is the middle path, which is what eventually the teachings are based on. And I don't know, I saw Thorfinn following a similar thing where he starts off as this kind of cold-blooded, raised to kill murderer, and then after that he takes this kind of like supreme pacifist mode, but then realizes that he kind of does have to merge those two parts of himself in order to accomplish his true goal.
Yeah, I could definitely see that reflected in him, just this taking all of the experiences of his life, and like it is idealistic but also a realistic in as much of an idealistic way as possible, if that makes any sense.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. Aki, what was the discussion around Thorfinn like?
You guys hit on a lot of the more poignant aspects for the jurors. They felt that his journey in this season served as a very novel but still very interesting and intricately tied journey to his journey in season 1. One of the big things that you guys I don't think mentioned that was pretty resonant with the jury was his relationship with Einar, and how that not only served to kind of lighten the tension sometimes, but also how it was an effective foil, because obviously Einar was enslaved by Vikings, and Thorfinn was a Viking warrior at one point. So the kind of interplay between those, forcing Thorfinn to face his past in a very direct way as opposed to an indirect way that he kind of did in a lot of other parts of the season, was something that really struck a chord with the jurors.
In general, how did both of you feel that this year was for a character? Because judging characters is always hard every year, just because there's so many of them as compared to like number of series. What did you think?
I guess there's a pretty decently strong lineup of characters this season. Like especially I've noticed a bit of a theme with a few of these characters, without Thorfinn being one of them, and there are two other ones without spoiling it getting on this list where it's basically like the very cycle of violence related and their attempts to break that cycle and either succeeding or failing in certain ways. And so that's definitely, like, in my opinion, like one of the more powerful things you can have a character represent. So I'm definitely a big fan of a lot of the characters on this list.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that kind of impressed me about the array of characters this year is that there really was a lot of diversity. Like in some of the later nomination stages, I had the jurors go through and kind of denote which of the shortlisted characters they most wanted to see in the final nominations, and which ones they least wanted to see. And there was a pretty healthy spread. Like I think there for each juror there was one character that they really wanted to see that other jurors were significantly less big on. So I think it's really cool that there is something that like something for everyone that really kind of resonates with them specifically. That was really impressive to me about this year as compared to previous years for dramatic character.
This is maybe, I don't know if this is a actual astute observation or not, but we decided this year, and I think previous years, to not have a best antagonist category, but instead just have them roped into other characters. And I see a number of them here. I see Nikaido from Tsurune, which is kind of part of the bad boy, poor other archery club. We can't afford a range. We stick signs in sand. And then obviously Geto, which is like the main big bad of Jujutsu Kaisen. How do you guys think about the antagonists for this year and the ones that appear on this list?
We definitely had some pretty strong antagonists. Ghetto is definitely like one of the more popular ones, I think, in terms of just like
Is he good though? I don't know. When the big reveal happened, I
He's
just
pretty decidedly evil.
okay, yes. Well, does he is he well? Is he is he written well? I just feel that the big reveal regarding his character was such a letdown for me. Did you feel the same way?
for season 2 specifically, a lot of the good stuff of his character was in that first
Mm-hmm.
arc. But I can't something spoiler. I'm not let down by it, but it's definitely not what I was expecting.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for what it's worth, I do want to add the caveat that the dramatic character jury, rather, sorry, did decide to only consider his character in the hidden inventory arc. So that first like 5 episode mini arc in the
Okay.
beginning. Obviously, for the spoiler reasons that you all are talking about, they did not include any of the like kind of present day Sugarugeto
Oh,
material and
that's
only considered
interesting,
hidden
actually.
inventory.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I agree with that. But
Well, I mean,
we'll
yeah, it was a conversation that we had, and I think that they made good points. And honestly, I personally would agree with them that the Ghetto in the present day is a fundamentally different character than the Ghetto in Hidden Inventory. But
mm.
I can understand, and that's why I wanted to add that caveat in that is what they considered, and that is the end. Episode 5 was kind of the terminus of his consideration.
Now I want to move on to other characters that were popular, meaning Animakana. Hey, cut that out. That was really bad pronunciation.
Shitsuri
Um,
Kamimashita.
oh yeah, Shitsude Kamimashita. What did y'all think of Kana's character? Why do you think? I mean, out of all the characters in Oshinoko, it's interesting that Kana is the one that gets nominated rather than Aqua or Ruby or even Ai herself. What do you think Kana does for the show of Oshinoko, other than looking cute and dancing in broccoli?
Is there more that you need than that?
I mean,
You're lucky Pox muted. All I'm gonna say.
I mean, if she was just that, she would still be one of my favorite characters from the show. But I think what makes her stand out from the other characters in particular is that she has probably the most well-defined character arc, I guess you could say. Whereas like a lot of characters like Aqua just have this like ongoing thing that is just like slowly building up through the series. Kana kind of had like her big release moment, I guess, in that final concert where she like learned to stop hating herself quite as much. And I thought that was a very gratifying moment.
One other thing that I want to point out is that Kana was a public nomination rather than a jury nomination. And so I think it's interesting to note that because obviously at the end of the day, the public nomination is to a certain degree a popularity contest, and Kana is probably the least divisive character among the core cast of Oshinoko. Like, obviously, Ai's character journey is somewhat short and much more abbreviated than any of the other characters, and Aqua, at least from the discussion on the server that I've seen here, not just in dramatic character, but also in other categories like Anime of the Year, had a lot more warts to his character that people were not as fond of, even though there were other aspects that were positive. And so I think the fact that Kana is kind of not necessarily like a a kind of like vanilla character, but she is cute and she's fun and she has good moments and good interplay with the rest of the cast without kind of overstepping and becoming a character that people don't like. And so people who went through and were voting and were like, "Oh, I really like Oshinoko. Let me nominate a couple characters from Oshinoko." That might have picked two of the three, and they almost always picked Kana.
And I mean, in a show that's kind of cynical about the idol industry and show business in general, Kana does represent a kind of really interesting facet of child. What are we doing to these child actors? How are they coping as they grow up and lose that popularity and still try to hold on to that kind of 15 minutes of fame, as it were?
Yeah, I think that she's definitely, to be clear, a deserving character to be nominated here. I think that she has a lot of interesting, parts of her character, and the show utilizes her in a very interesting way. I don't quite know where I was going with that, other than just that she is definitely worthy to be here. She has some very strong points to her, and it's not just that, she's a popular and inoffensive character, but she does have legitimate dramatic merit.
Ember, can you explain what overtake is? Because I haven't heard of it.
Overtake is it's not F1, it's F4. So Formula racing, it's like one of the lower like leagues of it, I guess you could say. But for our nomination specifically, I believe this is what he's not one of the drivers. Koya is a photographer who has his like own separate arc in this series.
It's interesting that the character that's nominated from the driving show is not a driver. Why is that?
His arc is basically PTSD, and so so he had a traumatic experience that is haunting him throughout the series. And the more I think about it, the more I appreciate that his character was not just a straight shot to resolving it. It had like a lot of ups and downs, a lot of relapses in it. So it makes him a lot more interesting than just a like gradual step up to resolving this trauma.
Did his character make a contract with the white fluffy animal?
Not quite.
No, he's not tied with the strings of fate to one of the drivers?
Also not the case.
Okay. In that case, I think we're done here. I want to thank both of you for speaking with me. Thank you, Ember.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, and Aki, I'm happy to have spoke with you.
Nice to meet you. Happy to have spoke with you. I'm Max Spender.
And on that note, we'll move on. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. We'll see you soon.